What we're going to talk about today is the cybersecurity blueprint. And a few months ago, we introduced a program called the Brain Trust. Okay, and the Brain Trust is designed to help SEC registered firms all the way through the topic of SEC cybersecurity. And we have a couple different levels of tiers. The very first level tier is it's absolutely free. There's no credit card required to sign up. But we do like to have it there just for intellectual property protection rights, that sort of thing. So all of the materials that you see today, you'll need a Brain Trust membership to access them on our website. But super easy sign up. Like I said, no credit card required. But go ahead and get it set up. We'll cover a couple different topics today, mostly our CRVT reports, which are those written risk and threat assessment reports we'll often see the SEC ask for in examinations. We're going to talk about doing scanning, vulnerability scanning, or penetration testing, whatever that might mean for your firm. General consulting, we're going to talk about cybersecurity training. Your employees are definitely going to need some training. For one, for practical reasons, and two, for compliance reasons, we have to have that in place. And within the Brain Trust, we're also going to have a lot of compliance templates that you can download, not only cybersecurity, which we'll cover some of the cybersecurity today, but also just generic vendor due diligence type documents, templates there to help you along the way. Part of the Brain Trust, I'll show this page real quick. It's going to be pretty helpful for almost everyone. We call it the knowledge base. So if you click on the knowledge base, it'll have the latest effective date that everything has been updated. This is going to be your go-to source for all rules cybersecurity related, both SEC, FINRA. Going to walk you through them. If you click on the particular rule, it'll outline exactly what it says, what kind of impact it has to your operations, so on and so forth. It'll also kind of talk about the different requirements, right? So we're going to talk about the written cyber program, the annual, the incident response protocols, client data safety, identity theft, vendor risk management. So we can see how all those rules apply, and you can see our interpretations of them as you kind of look through them. And then scrolling down, you'll see a lot more, mostly links to the SEC regarding different regulations, of course, that kind of come into play. Some not even related to cybersecurity, but should be just kind of a great jumping off point for that information that you need. The intelligence reports are going to be another big product that we put out, securing compliance. We're going to talk about that. That's our document that covers everything the SEC is going to ask for in the examination. The blueprint, that's what we're going to go over in detail today. And we're also going to talk about the AI SEC compliance framework. This is a big one. We're going to cover the topic kind of briefly today, but definitely jump into it in detail here in the future. When you do become a Brain Trust member, you can submit a support ticket. There's a membership portal to manage your membership. Everything can be handled there in the Brain Trust link. And then we also talk about the training, the Fieldcraft program. So to log into the training, that can be done here. So let's go back to this blueprint and let's walk through it and talk about the different phases that we would go through. I think this blueprint is designed for maybe a couple different people. I think it's for someone maybe who's just stepping into a role that's going to be in charge of cybersecurity. Maybe it's someone that just is finally like, hey, we got to get this under control. Maybe you just went through an examination. I think there's a wide range of situations that this could be applied to. Essentially, we're going to break it down into 3 phases. First phase is going to be, what can we do immediately, right? Like, how do we build the foundation and build up from that to make sure we have an extremely solid cyber program? Phase 2, we're going to talk about the ongoing processes. Okay, we've got the foundation down, we've built the machine, how do we run the machine? In phase 3, will be about monitoring, continuous improvement, and I'll show you some examples of what those systems look like for mature clients as well. So how to use this blueprint? Pretty simple. Start at phase 1, right? Work through it. As you go through this stuff, just mass keep your documentation, right? Go through, capture everything that you can, put it in the files, apply a name and date system so that we can go back, start to create checklists. Okay, every firm is going to be different in regards to what they need to do. Some firms have the cloud, some have on-premise servers, some have employees working from home and some combination of that matrix, right, that makes everyone a little bit different. So understand what that checklist looks like for your firm. And then use metrics to look at what's going on. You know, are machines patched? Is there multi-factor authentication in place? Are vulnerabilities being patched when they're found? You know, we have to have those kind of systems in place. All right, so let's talk about the RIA integration with artificial intelligence. And this is going to be a major topic in the months to come. I think in the next month here, Lisa Marsden is a compliance consultant. Her and I are going to do a webinar focused exclusively on AI. I love doing these with Lisa because while I feel like I know the technical side of the SEC, she knows what I'll call the personal side of it and knows how people act. So having her insight into a lot of these things is very interesting. And I think she kind of agrees with me that this is going to be a major topic. If you're going to choose to use AI in your firm, and I believe you should, I think firms are going to have to use this to be competitive going forward. But we are opening up a hornet's nest, essentially. So, you know, when you get a chance, check out our RIA framework. This is going to walk you through every step of what is going to be covered in there. Okay, so governance, risk, and compliance, the access controls, who is using your models, data protection, deployment, inference, model management. There's a whole list of topics that are going to go into AI. And if you're going to integrate it, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is going to affect the rest of your cybersecurity operations. It's going to exponentially build on them and what you need to be doing. For those of you that say, oh, we've got the paid version of ChatGPT, we don't upload client data, case closed. That's not going to work. You simply can't use ChatGPT and just have a blanket statement like that and think that you're going to be okay in an examination. And in fact, I think you would be very rough on that. I think that would not be something that we would want to go through. So that AI framework is going to be key if you're going to build this, so that you understand how we can integrate this into our overall operations, making sure that we know what everyone's doing, what they're accessing, what they're doing with that data, and that we can prove it in an examination. Okay, so that's going to be a really big topic. So let's dive back in, okay? Whether you decide to use AI or not, we're still going to walk through kind of the same framework of how we would build out this program. And the very first is that we have to formalize that Chief Information Security Officer role. A lot of times, especially in smaller firms, this will fall on the CCO. Totally okay, no problem there. If that's the only person that we have to do it. You know, I think so. One of the first things once you do have this person picked out is start to build a quick matrix of roles and activities and who is responsible for each. In this way, as we build this program out, we know who's going to be doing the cybersecurity compliance work that we need done. Just on a kind of an overall level, I think for a CISO, the best person to have in this position is going to be someone that has an expert level understanding of the laws and regulations. Okay, understanding of the organization and the IT infrastructure, the conflicts of interest and how they're handled. Right? Are you managing 401k accounts? Do you have Department of Labor requirements? Have you stored individuals' 401k passwords? Know all these conflicts of interest and knowledge of the clients and how you serve them, right? How are we doing the things that we're doing for our clients? Expert level knowledge of the compliance and operation systems in use. You know, so one of the things we're going to talk about is the building of a cybersecurity policies and procedures manual. Whoever's in this role should have expert level knowledge of just that regular policies and procedures manual from 20647 that outlines everything we do. They need to know the markets and the practices that are affecting the firm, the culture of the firm, right? Do we have a bunch of cowboys that are running around and logging in the Starbucks Wi-Fi's 3 times a week? Or do we have a pretty, pretty toned down, everyone comes into a central office, no one works from home? So understand that culture, understand the executive tone and how cybersecurity culture is carried throughout the organization. Okay, so when I'm working with a client, first thing I do is run an initial assessment, right? We plug in the machines, we run the scanners, we want to get a full understanding of what that network looks like. And you've probably seen this graphic before. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit here. But this is just kind of a quick overview of what we need to be doing. Okay, what does a cybersecurity compliance operation look like? For instance, let's say this is our office. In that office, we have printers, we have workstations, we have individuals that are using the workstations, and these individuals we know are susceptible to subject in social engineering. We also have to worry about internal penetration tests coming in, or excuse me, internal intruders coming in. So we do the internal penetration test. And also we're checking configurations of everything, right? Are the servers configured correctly? Is Microsoft Windows updated and patched? Is the router, is the modem? We have to know, are these things vulnerable and are they patched? So, of course, this is a pretty graphic. I'll show you at the end what this looks like in the real world. From my clients and from my organization, I love to actually have a map like this where we can click on a workstation and see everything that's going on there and all the vulnerabilities associated, where we've scanned. For one, it's great for organization, and two, it works like magic in an examination. So we'll finish off and talk about that, because for me, this is like a phase 3. This is what a mature operation looks like. Okay, so one of the first things is to start that policies and procedures manual for cybersecurity, and whether you want to keep this separate or mingle it with your overall manual, I think that's up to you. I don't think it really matters from an examination standpoint. Let me show you an example of what our template looks like, one that's available with the Brain Trust, and some of the topics that we cover. So I didn't jump into too much regulation on this, but as you know, we had 20649, which was the major cybersecurity regulation and was one that the SEC kind of wiped here at the end. But there was nothing in that regulation that isn't already listed somewhere else. SP, Reg ID, 20647, they all kind of have these provisions in them anyway. The one thing 20649 was specific about was what topics need to be in the policies and procedures manual. So this template is designed to be pretty comprehensive. I think it's about 29 pages long that you can work through. Again, very templated, but it's what you can start to build on to build that foundation. There's when you download the template, you can see more information on it, but it's designed to be a static dynamic type template, so that the static part describes our operations, describes who does those operations, and then the dynamic part is where the static part says, hey, reference exhibit A, and then exhibit A is going to be our vulnerability scan or our network map or our written risk and threat assessment report or cybersecurity policy. Whatever those documents that routinely change, we'll call them our dynamic documents. So it's an awesome template. I've rarely come across a situation where I've been put into project work with a client and not been able to take that template and get a really nice policies and procedures manual out of that. Just to back up a little bit here, one thing that I'll note is really important is if you do this work first, okay, if you do your scanning, if you do your network mapping, this becomes a lot easier, because now we know what operating systems everything is running. We have very specific details on every system on our network, so we know how to build the policies and procedures and manual around them. So just kind of a quick note there in terms of steps. Incident response plan, okay? Doesn't have to be elaborate. I like to see, I've got 4 things listed here. For my Southern folks, I actually have 5 that I like to see. But I want to see some kind of incident response plan for a phishing account takeover, a lost laptop or a lost cell phone, or stolen laptop, stolen cell phone, a ransomware incident, and a vendor breach. Okay, what does that look like? And so go ahead and map that out. It can be really rough right here. Okay, so phase 1, we're getting something down on paper. Phase 3, we're going to have this really drilled down to a cadence. For my Southern folk, and even some of my East Coast people, let's talk about weather. Okay, that's a big issue. People in New Orleans, Florida, Even a little bit here in Texas, right? We deal with hurricanes, and those hurricanes bring internet outages, communication outages, power outages. So if you're in an area that's prone to that type, go ahead and throw that in there, because the regulators are definitely going to bring it up. If you're in the middle of an earthquake, if you're in downtown San Francisco, have an earthquake plan, right? Launching initial training. Okay, so with even our free membership, you have access to our Fieldcraft program. Okay, and this is a training program that is meant to fully automate your employees' training, your employee awareness training, as the SEC will call it, the cybersecurity awareness training. So for us, we basically break it up into two different programs. There's going to be training programs. We have a little over 100 topics that you can choose from. You go in and choose the topics that are most relevant to your firm. For instance, do you have RFID badges to get into the building? Well, let's have a training on that. Do you have employees working from home? Do you have employees who are sharing social media from the office, right? We can go and pick the topics that are relevant for us, and then Fieldcraft will roll that training out to them to make sure that they're going through and understanding what is important to the firm. There's also assessments, which is going to test their knowledge and behavior. Do they click on the phishing email? It actually goes a little bit beyond just like the no before, yes, no type thing. It's actually going to manage their behavior. Like, did they scroll over the link and see where the link went before they clicked on it? Did they look at the email header to see who it was really from, to see if it could be spoofed? So it's a pretty cool assessment. If you log in, you can click try demo. It'll walk you through everything. You can see the training programs and assessments here as you go through. Employees can be broken up into different lists. So, maybe traders get one set of training, accounting gets another, whatever that looks like for your firm, you can definitely break that up. And then the reports will come right in here. So you can go through and generate a snapshot report. Say you have an SEC exam coming up and they want to know where everyone is on their training. You can do that. And you can also design recurring reports. So anyone that falls behind in their training, isn't logging in and doing it, the system's going to automatically ping them and get them on that content so that they're not falling behind. It takes about 10 minutes to set up, which is really cool. So this is a great resource if you're not doing any training. Again, it's free with that low membership. There's a limited version that's free with that membership. Log in. One of the great things too, if you have, let me see if I can find a good one here. Let's click travel risk. As the admin, and you're seeing the admin portal here, say you have something about your firm that is unique. Okay, we routinely travel to North Korea, and we have these crazy cyber requirements, right? You could go through and list those here to make them specific for your firm. Each video is a little bit less than 2 minutes. It's got live actors and slight humor, and then it'll go through and give them a quiz, kind of key takeaways from it so that we can track that they're doing the training. So really cool program, a lot of different topics to choose from. Put a new one out roughly every 6 weeks or so. And then we also have a lot of risk assessment scenarios. Okay, so how would employees react to a ransomware attack, all kinds of unattended visitors, all kinds of topics that might be relevant for your firm. So Fieldcraft's a really cool program. It'll tackle the vast majority, all of your cybersecurity employee awareness training. So by far, that is the most important thing you can do. Okay, I rarely work a case where at the end of the day, we can't look at someone and say, you shouldn't have clicked on that, or you should have verified that that was actually the client requesting their money, right? It always comes down to the human, 99.9% of the time. So it's very important training. Get that knocked out quickly. Again, it's really quick to set up and get going. Books and records, okay? Again, kind of go back to a naming convention, but as you're going through and doing all this stuff, set up a cybersecurity compliance folder. I've covered how I set up folders and organize them in other webinars. I won't dive into the weeds here, but those are definitely available on the YouTube channel. But have a good naming convention so that as we start moving into phase 3 and realizing what this mature program looks like, we can start to categorize these and build a cadence. All right, so ongoing processes. All right, one of the things I'll kind of point out here is to take a look over at the compliance template section of the Brain Trust. So there's quite a few documents in here that are going to help you throughout that phase two. Securing compliance is going to be the big one. Securing compliance is going to cover what the SEC is going to ask for in a examination. It's also going to go into extreme detail about what's needed in that policies and procedures manual and how to organize everything. So it's a really strong document. At the end of it, it's actually just copy and paste of what the SEC is going to ask. There's been no editing to it. But it's a great read to go through. So as you're building your policies, you can go back and look at it and go, okay, could we produce this documentation? This is the policies and procedures manual template that I showed a second ago. That's going to be an important one. The AI compliance framework, if you decide to go down that AI rabbit hole, that's going to be the document for you. Here's the blueprint that we're talking about today. And then going down, we have mock audits. If you want to run a mock audit, you can go through and run that. And then these are the ones I really wanted to show you, but employee technology usage agreements, firm technology use policies, understanding what your 20647 review should look like and how to tie in compliance to that. There's a couple checklists and spreadsheets here to get you through it. Quite a few here. I won't go through all of them, but definitely check that out, because as you move into that phase two and start to build out your annual program, doing your multi-factor coverages, looking at your timelines, doing the things that are necessary for your firm, doing that annual audit, those documents are going to help you out. Vendor risk management, there's a lot of third-party programs out there that do an awesome job of this. They're also very expensive and overkill for the vast majority of firms. So, if that's something you kind of deal with, there's some templates about vendor risk management in that compliance section that you can download. For me, and I'll just touch on it briefly. When I'm thinking about a team with limited resources and how they do vendor due diligence, a lot of it comes down to who has access to the sensitive data and who has access to the money. Start from there, and you can start to build out that program in a pretty solid way. In phase two, as you start to build this out, refine your incident response plan. Okay, so we threw a bunch of stuff on the wall in phase one and phase two. Now we're starting to, test our backups. We're running tabletop exercises to see what it looks like if we do have a breach or a lost laptop. And from that, we can quickly go back and refine our incident response and what we're going to do. Maybe we need to change, maybe we found that the operation wasn't that smooth and we need to change, the point of contact in some way. There's all kinds of iterations that you can go through. The ongoing training and awareness, like I said, the field craft, at this part, we should have it up and full running. It should be producing our compliance reports. As a cyber compliance manager, you should be logging in to see who's falling behind, okay? Who's not doing their training, who's clicking on phishing emails, who is answering the questions wrong and doing risky stuff. We'll actually assign a risk profile to each employee that you can go and see. So follow up with those people. Ask them why they're clicking on emails. Ask them, why they're not doing their training. But we, show some kind of follow-up to that with the training. Disclosures and reporting, not the biggest of concerns right now. One of the things 20649 introduced was the form ADV-C. It also introduced some required language on the Part 2 brochure that went out and what was supposed to be disclosed to clients about our cyber program and what was supposed to be disclosed to the SEC. So, a little bit of a kind of, I think, hold and wait on exactly what that looks like for us in the future. I'm sure there's going to be something there. We're just not quite sure what, but, the disclosures and reporting are definitely going to be a big part of what we do. And cyber insurance. Okay, so if you don't have cyber insurance, this is one of the places where you'll want to start to look at it. And as a consultant, the biggest bit of advice I tell clients is to think about your operations. Okay? The vast majority of my clients can think of it as we are protecting data and we are protecting money. And if you don't have custody of assets in any way, other than maybe management fees, I know on the Form 80B, there's that little nuance about management fees. I'm not too worried about that. When I say custody, I mean the ability to move money to an unauthorized third party. If you don't have that ability, if all your money is, or all your clients' assets are Schwab, Bank of America, wherever they're at, and they're not with you, then really all we're thinking about is data, protecting data. And the reality is there's not a terrible amount of risk around that if you set up your operations correct. Truth be told, we're also in an era where cybercrime really doesn't value data anymore. On the other hand, if you are one of these firms that has adopted Bitcoin, this is going to be a huge topic for you. We don't work with firms that use any kind of crypto assets. It's not something we want to associate or put our name on. But if you are going to go down the crypto route, you definitely want to have a major cyber insurance policy. So, cyber insurance is going to be a different topic for a lot of people. For my clients, to continue on that idea, or for my smaller clients who are really protecting data, don't get too much into this, okay? The cyber policy is probably never going to come into effect for you. And even if it did, you're probably not going to have much of a payoff out of it. On the other hand, I would never want to sit through an examination and try to explain to an examiner why I don't want to have a cybersecurity insurance policy. It's just not a conversation I would want to have. So if you find yourself that all you're protecting is data, stop mostly on price. Okay, if you actually have assets that you're trying to protect, or if you have significant data, okay, we'll say that. If you have significant valuable data, then maybe cyber insurance is what you want to look like. Phase 3. All right, so let's talk about enhancement and continuous improvements. One of the first things I will jump to here is Nessus. Okay, Nessus is a program that I use and is essentially a Swiss Army knife for doing vulnerability scans, finding patch management issues, finding issues with cloud servers. There's really not a whole lot of situations I've come into and not found where I could use Nessus to perform my vulnerability scans and to do my compliance work. Okay. The downside of Nessus is it's $5,000 a year. It's by far the best of what it does. And yeah, I pay full retail for it, just like everyone. I always joke on my webinars, if you've got a cheaper, better solution, please let me know. But Nessus is industry standard and part of what you're going to need to go through and deploy these type of systems. So I clicked on Start a New Scan here just to kind of give you an overview of what we might set up. Okay, so if I was protecting an internal office, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my basic network scans, I'm going to look for patch systems, I'm going to make sure Microsoft is updated, Mac OS is updated, the router's updated, and that they don't have any vulnerabilities. If you're a firm that allows employees to use mobile devices, you have to have some kind of mobile device management policy, okay? That's going to be a big one for people. I don't know how many clients, the vast majority of them I come across, and we ask the question, okay, Sarah Smith just lost her phone. How are you going to wipe it? And they have no way to do it. On the other hand, that's also a major concern if you can wipe your employees' phones, right? So there's a lot that goes into mobile device management, but we can do all kinds of configuration audits. We can do cloud audit systems if we're using Salesforce, Azure, AWS. We can plug it into Nessus and test for vulnerabilities, right? So going back to that clean graphic, this is what we would use to test all those systems that are in our network. The other one I'll show is a program called Spiderfoot. And Spiderfoot is what I use to conduct these CRVT, these cyber threat reports that we put out to satisfy that requirement where the SEC comes in and says, show us a written threat assessment report. Okay, so here's one I did on NDD Group. NDD Group, I think, was just prosecuted by the SEC for fraud and a lot of different issues. So it's always fun to go in and see what they were up to. Unfortunately, we didn't get too much out of this, but a lot of times you can see kind of the back doors of what these guys were using to run their fraud. But essentially, what I'm trying to do with this report is show what a hacker shows, okay? Or excuse me, show what a hacker sees. So if I'm a hacker and I'm coming after your firm, I want to know all kinds of information about them. Where did you register your domain? Where's your email server located? What are your email addresses? What websites are you using? Have you accidentally leaked any documents? Do you have any open calendars that I can go and look through? And we can run Spiderfoot and it'll come through and tell us all kinds of correlations. As you can see, it'll go through and capture all kinds of information about your firm, physical addresses, where you're located. That was the guy's personal address there. So you can go and pull this type of information. A lot of times, you can find documents that they accidentally leaked, right? So if you're using Office 365 and Chris Johnson accidentally shares publicly a document and then goes, uh-oh, and pulls it back, too late. It's already been shared. It's already been captured by the internet, and hackers are going to pull it up in this type of report. So Spiderfoot's really cool. We can collect a mass amount of data. It looks like this, and we can start to run some AI around it to say, hey, look, tell us what this infrastructure really looks like, right? And then it'll start to come up with something like this, where we can start to understand exactly what was going on with this network and how we might get in. So little things like that. This is what a mature program looks like. With a program like Spiderfoot, we set it up. We can go in, click this refresh button, and it's going to go through and update everything. It takes about 5 or 6 hours to run. And on the back end, it's tied to a lot of databases, a lot of threat intelligence databases, so that we can know if these are bad actors that are coming our way. The last one I'll show you is called Maltego. And I kind of went back and forth on whether to show this one or not. Maltego is a program that is great at collecting intelligence and allowing us to view intelligence in this kind of manner. But it has gone up in price from $1,000 to $5,000 a year. I don't know that for us, the utility is there, but I wanted to show you anyway, in case it's something that you see and want to use. Essentially, here I can show you a couple different ways that I use it. Here would be like a sample threat map, okay? So let's say one of my employees is bill.gates@gmail.com, okay? One of the things I want to know is, in the dark web, where can I find this email listed? So if we look, I can find it in the Apollo breach, I can find it in the LinkedIn breach, Go Nitro. There's a lot of them here. I think one of them here is going to be the Audi breach. You can start to really see, where these people are doing things. So this is actually real breach data from one of my clients with the Bill Gates at gmail.com anonymized, for instance. But one of the things we like to show here is people say, oh, we use Have I Been Pwned? Okay, which if you haven't used Have I Been Pwned, you can go put your email address in there, and it will tell you everywhere that it's been in a breach. This particular instance, when we run it, it came back and it said there was nothing listed. It couldn't find it listed, whereas when we do the dark web search, you can find a lot listed. So in this type of map, I will map the email address to the different breaches. And then down below that, let me jump into a little bit bigger screen here so we can see it a little easier. And then down below that, I will map the information that was lost there. Okay, so why is that important? As a threat intelligence person for my firm, as someone running the cyber program, I need to know when someone has lost their usernames and their passwords. In this particular instance, this individual's driver's license was lost in the Audi USA.com breach. They purchased an Audi, had their driver's license associated with it. Their social security numbers are out there. You can see this is just a vast amount of data that we have about one person. Okay, so we need to know this. This needs to be part of our threat management plan, because hackers are going to use this. If I can, let's just, for instance, let's find passwords here. And I won't click on them to show, but if we look at passwords, okay, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arrows coming in, I have 5 instances of a password that this individual used. And if I'm looking at it as a hacker and their password is password123 each time, guess who my target is? Okay, this guy, right? He doesn't care about cybersecurity. He's using the same password over and over. And there's just numerous ways that this kind of intelligence can be used against you. So that's a threat intelligence map. Rounding out that same kind of graphic in the beginning that I was talking about, I like to have a map that actually shows what my network looks like. So here we have the company Bella Ford with an office and a website. Okay, so we have employees in the office. We have a website that sits on a domain and has a bunch of other systems behind it. When we scroll into the office, we can click on this and see that we have someone's computer. Okay, so we have a Windows machine. And then if we scroll down from that, we can see everything that's going on that machine. For instance, this guy is using the Splashtop Streamer remote desktop. Is he authorized to do that? Should he be sharing his screen? If so, is it properly secured? If not, how did it get open? Has the machine been compromised, right? So this allows us just to go through each and every machine and start to look at what's going on. Here we can see the Sonic Wall firewall, but this is just great. So the way you build this map is actually using Nessus, okay? So that program Nessus will go and do the scans. It'll give us an export, and we can export that into Maltego here to build these kind of maps. Similarly, you can see here the two websites. If we scroll down, we can see all of the systems that website is using. So if news breaks, like, well, it's been a little while now, but Log4j hit the news everywhere. So if that was something that was hitting the news and you had no idea whether that affected your firm, this is an awesome little thing to come in and scroll around and go, yep, we do not have Log4j anywhere on our website. So great little reference there. And the last one I'll show is how we can use it for website intelligence and threat intelligence. So here is a pool of my website visitors. So each week, each visitor gets exported and we can pull them into this type of matrix. And what we'll start to see if we zoom in, so each little dot here in the center is going to be a visitor. We can start to see exactly where that individual came from. So this visitor came from the 36th District Court. This individual came through an Amazon server. So we start to see a lot of information here. A couple things. When we're working with firms on competitive intelligence, this is an awesome type of report to start, to realize who's going to your website, where they're from, what they're doing, how often they're visiting. But two, this is great for understanding what threats are touching my network. Very rarely would we have an attack where at some point they probably did not touch our website, or at least something in our network at least once. So if I can capture them in this and start to look and say, okay, I've got this guy visiting 4 or 5 different times, pinging back to a Russian server, that starts to become suspicious. So, we can start to use this for intrusion protection, intrusion detection, and looking for all kinds of weird things that are going on there. So yeah, we can see if they're coming in on VPN, right? Are they coming in on the Tor network? Very suspicious. We want to know about that. So that's just some of the ways that we can use Maltego. Again, Maltego does not produce this information. It just gives us a very nice graphic to look at it. For me, is this graphic worth $5,000? Probably not, but that is because we will just code up, some other graphic that we can use for a fraction of the price of $5,000. But I do want to show it because it is a very cool program and allows, I think any firm that's wanting to build that mature program, Maltego is a great way to show, keep track of that and show that you're doing that. So yeah, continuous monitoring, data loss prevention, the reg tech and automation, these are all kind of become part of that third phase as you realize what works for your firm, and they're building that out. I think, kind of to polish it off here, it ends with just some of the key metrics to track throughout this. So I probably should actually move this to the top of the page, right? But as you're going through these phases, keep these items in mind, because at the end of the day, these are the programs that we need to show that we're on top of and that we're in control of. And then at the end here, I just quick starting checklist. Like, what does this might look like for you? If you haven't done anything, if you've done very little cybersecurity work for your firm, definitely, that could be a good place to start, to just go through that checklist there. All right. Bottom line, I think as you approach this, it's important to take it one step at a time. If you have questions, there's a ton of resources. Feel free to reach out to us. There's a ton of other resources out there to kind of help you through it. Make evidence as you go, track as you go, and you'll start to kind of put this together. I think one of the things that I like to tell clients, especially the ones that go that do-it-yourself route, is don't be afraid to be messy with this, right? Phase one's going to be messy. Phase two is going to be a little bit cleaner and make a little bit more sense. And phase three is going to look a lot cleaner as you kind of work through this blueprint. So, kind of trust in that process as you work through it and take it one step at a time, collect as much documentation as you can. Because at the end of the day, if we have an examination, there's never a problem with saying, hey, we collected too much documentation. I know that's certainly the goal and the way I present things. So just wanted to kind of go through that blueprint with you. You're welcome to access this anytime on our website with that Brain Trust free membership and walk through this at your own pace. I think in the future, we'll start to release a few videos that add a little bit of clarity or demonstrate exactly how to do these different programs. So if you have any feedback on that or any information that you'd like to see, please feel free to share that. Last thing I'll show you on the website is the schedule a meeting protocol. So if you have any questions, want to contact us, that's the easiest way to jump on the calendar for a Zoom or a phone call, whatever works for you. Also, feel free to reach out through email or LinkedIn. If I wasn't too long-winded here, it's definitely a topic I love to discuss and happy to discuss about your firm or how the Brain Trust might work out for you guys. Looking through the questions here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to go through and type them in. One question is this just for cybersecurity compliance? Yeah, so in the Brain Trust, probably about 90% of the materials are going to be, at least the really meaty materials are going to be cybersecurity focused. There's also a lot of just generic stuff of, okay, how do we produce the compliance documentations for vendor due diligence, right? So even though that might not be 100% cyber related, I mean, for me, it's a little bit of a side topic and related, especially if we're dealing with managed service providers and that sort of thing. So for the most part, yeah, it's going to be cybersecurity content related in the Brain Trust, but there are some resources in there for other aspects of compliance as well. Vast majority is to answer on another question. So I generally focus on SEC compliance, and that by and large goes correctly to the state boards. And if there's any compliance lawyers in the audience, feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything here, because I'm not 100% on state board regulation. For the vast majority, the SEC tells us to follow the NIST standard, and I think soon they will tell us to follow the CISA standard. Either way you go, that's okay. At the end of the day, it means practically the same thing. There's not that much beyond those two standards that we could add. Okay, so even if you're a state board and you're following those standards, you're going to be fine and meet any cybersecurity regulations that I know of. The two standouts that I'm aware of, I'm going to see maybe three actually. So California might be the third, New York and Florida for sure. You have some more stringent cyber regulations than what the SEC currently produces, I believe. At least it used to be in the very near past, but I know a lot of change has gone on. But you used to have slightly more stringent regulations in Florida and New York regarding cybersecurity. So if you're in one of those states and you're state registered there, definitely look into that and make sure you're meeting those. I think as if you do the things in the blueprint and you go through that securing compliance document and you're able to say yes to everything in there, we can produce this document. I can't think of an examination that you would go through that you couldn't show, complete coverage on there. So, I always present it as SEC or FINRA. I think they all kind of come down to the same standard. What really matters is how do we draft the language? So if we jump over to the knowledge base, are we referencing FINRA regulations and rules, or are we referencing SEC, or a combination of both, depending on how you register? All right. And yes, there will be a replay. I'll have a recording of this that will go out here to everyone. That's all I got for you today. Definitely encourage you to go to the website, check it out, sign up for the Brain Trust membership there. And any questions come up, you know exactly where to find me. Again, thanks for joining me this Friday. Hopefully everyone had some plans coming up that they can get to and picked up some knowledge on this webinar. So, thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a great weekend ahead.